Hello, my friends. It's the LABAN Lab, the work of Rudolf von Laban. And he has like a million other names: Rudolf, Attila, Vralaj, like all sorts of names. And more kept getting put on because his father was a general in the Hungarian army. Anyway, that's why they get the extra names, the titles. So Laban, the system of Laban that I work with is the Laban Bartenieff system. Irmgard Bartenieff was a physical therapist, a dancer, a performer, multiple other things. She was a pioneer of dance movement therapy and using movement to help people in many different ways. She worked a lot with polio patients in the US and was often working with people that nobody else would work with. So part of her idea was like to motivate and activate, like get people motivated, make it fun, make it interesting. So the system of Laban Bartenieff is sort of the American version of the system. And there are a couple of different, maybe two or three different versions of that in the US. And the program that I went through was at LIMS in New York City. And I went through in 1995, 96 in that cohort in the year-long program. So sometimes we talk about what makes up Laban movement analysis from this system. And so there are four main things: body, effort, space, and shape. So I'm just going to talk about what those are. So anything on the body level is sort of like the functional, what is moving, like it's my fingers are moving and they're sort of the body actions, like I am swinging my arms, right? Just swinging my arms. So that's a body action. Or I'm raising my arms, body action. I am flexing and extending my fingers. I am closing and opening my hands. I am in stillness, my whole body. Or my lower body is in stillness while my upper body is moving. So these are just ways of looking at that body level. What's happening on the body level? If it's like a body exercise, fitnessy type stuff, that's the body level. Now, we can add a lot to the body level. Like I could do a fitnessy exercise with different relationships of time, effort. I could do them where my body is slowing down or speeding up. So every part of body, effort, space, and shape interrelates with the other parts. And we're just going to look at things on different layers of how they're working, how they're interrelating and stuff like that. But I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of what these things are in the system that I learned. And I did travel to London and visit the Laban Institute, the Laban Center in London many years ago, and just saw, oh, this is actually quite different. Like there's the space stuff that's happening and the effort stuff, but some of I think shape doesn't quite happen in the same way over there, and they don't have the same body level. So Irmgard developed a whole bunch of basic exercises. She didn't want to call them exercises. That's why they're called the Bartenieff Fundamentals, because she didn't want them to be like codified, like this is how it must be for all time. So she kind of struggled with the idea of exercise, but I could show you what some of those are. Maybe we're going to stick with mostly body today and Bartenieff Fundamentals. But first, I just want to give you the overview of the rest of, just a quick overview of body, effort, space, and shape. So the effort are like the dynamics of the movement. Like, is it direct and pinpointed? Direct space effort, not to confuse you with big dynamics, big geometric space, but space effort, direct and indirect. So these are kind of like the sprinkles that we put on the donut, or like, is it glazed or does it have cinnamon, right? So this is the flavoring. This is the things that pop out with so space effort is one. And then there's flow. There's free flow, which is very childlike and could not easily be stopped. It's like, it's got this freedom. It's not all constricted. And there's bound flow, which is much more contained and much more mature, right? So free flow, bound flow, those are an effort. Direct space, indirect space, effort. Then we have weight. And weight isn't like it's heavy or it's limp. It's like it's either strong weight or it's lightweight. So strong weight, as you can see, I'm already putting the space into it, the geometric space. Strong weight has a tendency to go down. Lightweight has a tendency to rise, right? Light. There are some people that just move so easy and light, and it's like, oh, and some cultures where many of the women are very light, and sometimes the men too, but like sometimes different cultures, like culturally, we take on ways of being in our body. In my family, strong and direct are huge. You have to know what you're saying and say it and be specific and tell everybody how to do things right. Right. That was part of my Northern European, I don't know why, structure of learning how to be a person in the world. So that's a little bit of body and effort. We didn't talk about one of them. Body, no, we did. Time, space, weight, and flow. Those are the 4 effort elements. The next one is space. And so when we're talking about big space, geometric space, we're talking about like the octahedron, the icosahedron, the cube. There are things in the dodecahedron. I have yet to learn them. The tetrahedron, like, so these platonic solids are what we're talking about, how we move within them. So to move in the octahedron, it's the 6 points: up, down, side, side, backwards, forwards, right? Or the 6 directions, right? We have the cardinal directions and then up and down as well. If we put a scaffold, if we take that inner scaffolding and make it into a structure, it will be an octahedron. Then there's also the cube, where we're working as if we're in a square in these spaces. So we're talking space. When we're talking space, like if I'm talking right forward high, it's not my right hand going to a place, it's a point in space, which probably looks like it's the opposite to you in this video, because I think I'm mirrored. I'm not mirrored. I don't know. I'm flipped or mirrored, whatever. So that's space. It is the where. What does it say on my piece of paper? Where in space is the movement? What trace forms are created? So trace forms are like, oh, these like triangles I'm making around myself. Like, what is, if we saw a shape around this, what would it be? And you can see, like, okay, I went up, I went to the side, I closed it in. What is that? That's a port de bras in ballet. There's the point right in front of me, point over my head, point out to the side, right? Same thing on the other side. One thing ballet is great is that it's going to balance out your body in this really good way, according to the octahedron. So like just on a purely physical body level, what it's doing is going to be even on the right and the left, even in the front and the back, and to the side. Like we're always going to be working all of those things. Other things are missing in it. It's not perfect, but that's just one way of looking at that. Then there is shape. And so shape is the dynamics of how we're relating to the environment. So if I'm in shape flow, I'm in my own relationship to myself. So like the underlying support of like my core support, my breath support, my being a person in my body without relating outward is when I'm in my own shape flow support. I could have major underlying shape flow support and then also be relating to the outer world. And hopefully I do. So we can think of the core support as being the organs working together, that I'm coherent in my system. My breath support is there. My digestion is working. My heart is beating. My nervous system is not amped up or totally depressed, right? So that my whole system is working in harmony. So that would be like an underlying really nice shape flow happening in my body. Like, oh yeah, she's got this shape flow support. There's not a lot of rigidity when there's a strong shape flow support, right? Rigidity to tension is going to mask the shape flow support. So we want to like, oh yes, I go with the flow. But it doesn't mean that you're a total like water person. It's just this underlying support where there's an ease in your body. Body's not fighting against itself too much, right? And most of the LABAN work is really geared towards finding ways of not fighting against yourself so that you're working in efficient ways where you're not expending all this extra energy to whatever it is you're doing, like that you're not like driving the car with the brakes on, but there's an ease in the way that you are in your body. So that is the basic underlying shape flow. As I start to, so shape has 3 different parts: shape flow, me relating to myself; directional shape, where I'm starting to make a bridge to the world. I'm radiating out from center, maybe doing a little arcing, spoke-like movement, arc-like movement, directional shape. I'm starting to connect to the outer world. So that could be not like a full-bodied connection yet, but some kind of like bridges into the environment. Also, ballet, very spoke-like and arc-like. So that kind of is very directional, shape-oriented, right? I am not fully mobilized in my core. I'm not shaping around it, which would be our next layer. So the next layer is shaping. And shaping is where there's a really big three-dimensional engagement with the environment, where it's like, wow, like, and you can hear there's that underlying breath support. And I'm like, I'm not just here in myself doing my thing, but I am taking in this, the room around me, taking in the air, maybe the people, whatever it is, in this much more three-dimensional, core supported relational way. So like we could say a shape flow, I'm here in myself. Directional shape, I'm shaking your hand. I'm making a bridge to you and shaking my hand, your hand. Then maybe a big shaping moment would be a big hug where we really come into each other. And then if you want to look at real shaping in dance, look at a form like zouk or lambada, right? The old school stuff where bodies are really working in cohesive, harmonic, in ways like that. I mean, the same thing with contact improv, where you're really sharing weight, where things are going back and forth, and there's like a very organic connection. So that would be full on shaping. And there are a bunch of words for all of these things. I thought I was going to do a body level class and come into Bartenieff Fundamentals. So yeah, I am going to. I'm not going to go into all the words, the shaping words or the shape flow words. It's more about ideas. And like basically all of my somatic inquiry practices, those are deep, deep shape flow that start to move into some directional shape and lots of shaping depending on how much movement I am. Micro movement is a shape flow support, right? The continuum work is deep, deep shape flow work. You're in your experience of being in a fluid body, right? What does that feel like? So that is major deep shape flow. And then let's definitely come into this Bartenieff fundamental little talk through. So when we're looking at the body level and the Bartenieff fundamentals, there's a lot of things. I've actually got my notes. I've taught these intros a bunch for the LABAN Institute. There's a lot of things that are involved in that. And I'm just going to do a very gentle, small exploration of those types of things in Bartenieff Fundamentals. So here I am, I'm on my back. Maybe just coming into feeling the bony landmarks that are connecting to the floor. So what I can feel the ones that pop out first are my sacrum, the back of my hip bones, my posterior superior iliac spines, and I don't know if you say spines or just, yeah, I think so. Also, I can feel the back of my shoulder blades, very shapely bones, the shoulder blades. And then I can feel my cranium, I can feel my elbow, I can feel the back of my knuckles, I can feel my feet. So I can kind of feel like my calcaneus. And I can feel other parts of my skin more than I feel anything of the bony landmarks. So I can feel sort of the container of my body as well, skin connected into the floor. And as I'm here, I can feel the sense of gravity in my body, the sense of groundedness. I'm connected to the earth. I am connected to this planet. I love to say it, I'm not going to fall off. And not only that, I belong here. If I was not born, then I wouldn't belong here. But since I was born, I belong here. I belong on the earth. It is my birthright to be here. So I'm going to find this relationship here between my heels and my sit bones. And I'm doing that by just pushing with my feet a little bit. So I'm feeling, oh, here are my sit bones. My pelvis is doing a little jiggle. I'm letting the contents of my body slosh around. So I'm not trying to contain and squish them up, just giving them some freedom. I'm letting my head and neck also soften up. So the three big bony structures of my cranium, my rib cage, and my pelvis are getting this movement. And in that movement, I start to go, oh, head tail connection. So I started with heel sits, I'm coming into head tail. And I can find, so these sort of basic body connections of these interrelated parts that when I feel one moving, maybe I can start to sense the other one. I can do that also with my arms, with my scapula on my back body, which are right, floating on the outside of my rib cage, to my arms. So my scapulohumeral rhythm is the rhythm of this relationship of my scapula to my humerus. And then also within that is my collarbone, right? My clavicle. So all of this whole system can move together. And that goes all the way out to my fingertips. So I can feel that outer sort of blade of my fingertip outside of my arm into my scapula, all the way down to the base of my scapula, right? And that whole system from my fingertips through my wrist, these radius and ulna, these two bones, to the humerus, in through the rotator cuff, with the support of my collarbone and my scapula on my back, I can do all sorts of exciting things with that, right? What a human arm can do, there will never be a machine that can be as sensitive as a human arm, right? Because we're feeling on all these different levels. And like my skin, I can have chicken skin, right? I can get goosebumps. I can feel my skin. I can touch super lightly. So I'm just touching my skin. Or I can go a little deeper and feel that superficial fascia where I'm kind of grabbing onto the superficial fascia. I can go under that, feel into my muscles. I can go under that, feel into my bones. And not only that, as I'm feeling into my bone with this hand, I can move this arm and also feel it from that side, right? So I'm feeling on these two different, from the inside and from the outside. That whole hand scapula collarbone connection, right? And as I move those around, I free up my shoulders on my back. It comes back into my head tail connection, right? So there's that relationship there. So I'm going to come back into my body. I'm going to do a pre-thigh lift, which is I'm going to slide my heel out and I'm going to slide it back up. And I'm feeling again that relationship of sit bone, heel, sliding out. And I'm flexing. So when I flex, it shifts my relationship of my awareness in the muscles in the back and front of my leg, right? If it's just relaxed, I don't feel into that tissue as much. Muscle and fascia, right? Let's do it on the other side. Same thing, sliding out. You can flex or not. You can stay relaxed. Like all of this could be super relaxed. I'm kind of sticking on the floor with my feet. Might be easier with socks on a hard floor. It might, on a mat, you might also stick. So really feel into it. Just letting one out and in and letting the other out and in. And so interestingly, it's interesting how in the Western world, we have decided that stabilizing all of this stuff is a great idea, right? And I'm just noticing how stable my torso is as my leg slides out and in, right? Because it could kind of like all sorts of stuff could happen in there also. But because I'm highly trained, I've really stabilized it. And I can stabilize it without using a whole lot of effort. My personal belief at this point in the world is that we actually need much more mobility in our core than stability. So that's one reason why I often don't teach some of these exercises. It's not that I don't love them and think they're wonderful. It's all good sometimes. And if you haven't done any kind of body practices, just doing this type of thing is great. It's a great start to build these relationships of like, oh, sole of my foot sliding on the floor, heel, sit bone. How much like physical effort do I need to engage? Not LABAN effort, but physical effort to slide that out and in. So that's a pre-thigh lift. So the obvious place to go next would be into the thigh lift, just lifting it up. So with this, a nice way to think about it is that on the exhale, so I'm going to inhale. On the exhale, my breath is going to go, and it's just going to let my leg come up. So inhaling, exhaling, and my thigh just rises. So we're not trying to put a whole bunch of tension in our belly and in our guts as we lift this leg. And the way that Irmgard taught it was that we're really using our psoas, which is a very deep muscle that's connecting in to our lesser trochanter, the top knob of our femur head here, which is deep in there, and in through up through the inner part of our spine, not on the surface, it's deep in. And then there's like part of it, there's like our iliacus that's connecting in. So if we go iliopsoas, it's like There's a few different parts of that muscle, but they're all really one. It's all connected. So that's what we were trained to use. But at the same time, it shouldn't feel like you're working. It should feel like nothing's happening. It's just easy, letting the leg float up. And I can do this with the breath or with not. It's nice to train the breath so you get used to it, but not be a slave to I must move and breathe this way. It can be different from different ways. So that is a thigh lift. In an ideal world in your thigh lift, and you probably can't see this very well, but you're in a neutral pelvis. So your pubic bone, your hip bones are equidistant from the floor. If I tuck, I'm here. Tucking in the animal kingdom is submission, right? Tail between your legs. Who does that? Bad dogs. Or submissive animals, right? So just be aware that tucking is submission. I mean, it can also feel good at times. So I'm not saying don't ever do it, but, and then there's the arch, right? There's the where my pubic bone is lower, my hip bones are higher. So arching up my back, lower back. So in a neutral pelvis, you still may have a slight lumbar curve, but you're just pubic bone, hip bones equidistant from the floor, not popped up, not dropped down. And let's just pick it up for a second, shake it out, let it release. So that's me. We got to shake out some of this stuff so we don't get so stuck in our bodies. Just shake it out, let it go. That actually is an exercise, the shake out. You can make noise, fry like bacon, make chicken sounds, right? Let it out or yell. Yelling is great with that too. So that was pre-thigh lift, thigh lift. We're going to do knee drop next. So the Bartenieff knee drop, it's going to have your feet lined up with your sit bones. So there we are. And you can let either one knee drop and then the other, or you can kind of let them both drop. Then you're going to initiate the movement with your tailbone drawing back toward the floor, and the knees follow. So one knee drops, the other knee drops. I like it separate, and then pelvis shifts. So you could even take a rock there. Try to leave your legs behind. For most people, you're going to want to go leg if you haven't done this before. But see if you can initiate with pelvis and then bring the legs. It's just a different way of movement, right? Of moving. So we're initiating in one place and then sliding across. Drop, drop, and then initiate with the pelvis, bring it up, drop, drop, pelvis up, drop, drop, shift, drop, drop. So it would be exhaling as you mobilize. Drop, drop, inhale, exhale, bringing it back. Drop, drop. That is squeaky deaky. The little devil kitten, bringing it back. All right, so let's go on. Let's open up. I feel the need to open up, so I'm going to open up into the shape of an X. My X is slightly longer than it is wide. So if I open to an even X, it's like that. I'm going to bring it in here. And I'm going to do a heel rock in my X. So the heel rock is like one of the sort of pre-Bartenieff fundamentals. It's so great to see what is and isn't moving in a body. So for me right now, I can feel that my sternum is not moving very much. So if I kind of imagine a wave moving through there, I can get more action. And for most people have learned how to stabilize so well, there will be almost no movement here. And then I'm just gonna let it go in and out. I can do a diagonal and heel rock from one heel to the other hand on one side or the other side, getting that diagonal heel rock. Contralateral pattern in our body, right? And then coming in, I'm going to do a body half. So it's elbow to knee on one side and it slides out, elbow to knee on the other and sliding out. And I could think about where I'm going to initiate this movement. Like I can initiate it like somebody's tickling me on my side and I contract in, or I could initiate mid-limb, elbow and knee initiate, right? It could be either way. Or I could even initiate, it's weird, but I could think of my hand and my foot coming in. So those are just different initiations we can think about, hand and foot. It's weird to think about that way because really, are they really starting the movement? But if I bring my awareness there, kinda. So that body half is a homolateral thing. One half of the body, one side of the body moves, the other side of the body moves, right? This heel rock is very much a push-pull pattern, and upper versus lower. This is normally we would probably do it like more Shavasana type place. And there is Gaylord. Gaylord, you can come in and say hello? Maybe not entirely. Everybody needs to go sit on my papers. That's one of their favorite things to do. Right, so we want to have this, we could relate shape flow to our heel rock. Like, how much shape flow do I have in here? How much am I letting go? And or free flow, right? Shape flow, free flow, bound flow, all interrelated. Okay, so let's come into a forward pelvic shift. So the forward pelvic shift, the way that I learned it was like inhale, exhale, take off. It's not like a sort of bridge where you're pushing up as high as you can. It's more like I'm inhaling, and then I'm doing a little pull with my heels on my knees, and my whole body travels that way. So I'm not going to my height. I'm just lengthening through here. And I have to say that that feels very different on how my spine lengthens out than when I push all the way up. I like to think of like a plane taking off of a runway. So like the exhale starts, and then at the last minute, it's that little extra lift and the heels give a pull. So it's pretty hamstringy, but not super hamstringy. Again, we're not trying to work as hard as we can. We're trying to work as easy as we can. And then let's switch it to the lateral pelvic shift. So lateral pelvic shift is just a little lift off, a shift a couple inches over, and a drop down. Lift it off, bring it to center, and come down. Old-fashioned typewriter. It's like going up. I'll show you this way. Let's show you this other way. So I'm going to lift. I'm feeling my heel set connection. Lifting up, shifting sideways, lowering down, lifting up, shifting to center, lowering down, lifting up, shifting sideways, lowering down, lifting up, bringing it to center and lower down. And I can feel in my own body, I don't need a lot of tension to do this. I can just press up, shift and lower, press up, bring it in and down. Sometimes when I touch clients, I'm like, holy crap, how are you even alive with so much tension in your body, right? So see if you can let that go. You can just try shaking things out, let it jiggle and soften, and then try working as easy as possible, right? We don't want to like drive and use all the gas in a trip around the block, right? We want to make it as easy as possible. So just for me, I need to do this. I'm listening into my own body. I need a little bit more freedom to happy baby, let everything open up. And I'm going to come back in. Those were the forward pelvic shift, lateral pelvic shift. And let's do we did knee drop. Oh, we haven't done the arm circle. So we're going to drop the knees down to one side. The arm circle is a big circle with your hand, with your arm. I'm looking in toward the palm of my hand as that arm circles around. My pelvis is kind of open here, so I'm going to relocate so you can see that. My feet are separate. Heel sit bone connection. Mine's maybe a little more open because that feels good to me. Dropping it down, following my hand with my eyes as I circle around. So these movements are kind of like the building blocks of movement. It's not all movement, but it is the building blocks of a lot of movement. I can change direction. I don't want to put a whole lot of tension in my arm as I'm doing this. So my elbow is kind of soft. I'm looking into the palm of my hand. I want this gradated rotation through the rotator cuff as it circles around. So it's really happy in that ball and socket joint. I'm going to do the other side, even out. So I'm going to drop my knees, look towards my hand, following my hand with my eyes. I'm picking my head up off the floor as I come up. And I'm feeling what is the relationship of my ribcage lungs. I'm not trying to smash it all down, but I'm just feeling this upper lower relationship through center as I'm circling my hand, changing direction, circling the other way. Here we have that hand scapula, pinky scapula collarbone connection. I feel like as I learned it, it was really pinky scapula. For me, I have to add the collarbone in. Like I need that front support as well. And plus it moves around so much. All right. So that was a whole bunch of them. We actually did, oh yeah, they call it the diagonal knee drop here. We actually did all of the basic 6 Bartenieff fundamentals. So I think I am going to leave it there for today and maybe come in and talk about some other things on another day. So thank you for joining, if you did indeed join. And I would love to hear your comments. If you have questions, comments, concerns, things that you want to know, please feel free to write them in there. We can talk about them. And that's it. So enjoy your day. May this is my prayer for the day. May everyone be concerned with softening their own animal body and not controlling other people's bodies. That's my prayer for the day.